Hi everybody, my name is Keeley and welcome back to my reading nook. As you can maybe see, I've decorated a little bit for Christmas. I am a huge Christmas person, and I'm so excited that I can finally celebrate, because to me, the Christmas celebration starts as soon as Halloween is over. So I have like some snowflakes up on here and garland, and you can't see, but there's some other fun doodads around the room, but I wanted to make sure there was some stuff visible in my backdrop. Yeah, so I hope that everyone has been having a really good reading month in November. I am a little bit late in getting my October wrap-up up, and that's for a couple reasons. One, I kept thinking I was going to be able to finish a book that I'm halfway in between. It just hasn't happened yet. So I figure that what I would do is come on here and do just a real, raw October wrap-up that's genuinely everything I was able to get to in October, and that's just the reality of a crazy month of school, and November has really been just as crazy. But I'm hopeful about getting to some of the things on my TBR. I am so looking forward to December because I'm going to be able to read so much on winter break, and even January as well. So stay tuned for those months, because I think I'm going to be reading a ton to catch up on everything I missed from my TBRs throughout the fall, and finish up some books that I started and never finished. So yeah. But I'm just going to get right into it. It's probably going to be a pretty short video, but these are the 3 books that I have to talk about. Yay! I enjoyed all of them, and I'm excited to talk about each of them, but there aren't that many, so I'll just get into it. One that you may remember from my September wrap-up was Let's Explore Diabetes with Owls by David Sedaris. David Sedaris is kind of like an essayist, and yeah, I guess I would describe him as an essayist. And I'm a big fan of a lot of his different books. I like Calypso and Me Talk Pretty One Day. I would probably put this below those two, but I still really enjoyed it, if that makes sense. It was pretty easy to get through, but the reason I say you might recognize it from my September TBR is because I read probably the first quarter of it in September, and then finished it up in October. I think I would give this a 4 stars. I really enjoyed it, but it was not my favorite of the David Sedaris books that I've read. I think this might have been one of his earlier works too, so there's that. But I am a big fan of his work, so I would definitely recommend it. This one's pretty funny. It's about his life in Europe, and just the crazy adventures that he goes on. And yeah, he has kind of a dark humor that makes me laugh. But yeah, I have one of his books that I actually want to put on my December TBR, so I'm kind of excited about that. But this was the one that I got to in October, so I'd say about 4 stars. Definitely enjoyable. I'm able to get through it quickly because, like I said, it's essays. So I definitely recommend if you're looking for something quick to pick up. But yeah, that is David Sedaris. And then the next book that I read, actually kind of a surprise for me. I ended up really liking it, even though I picked it up super randomly. So that is The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. It's super tiny, as you can see, and I don't know if you guys remember, but I hauled this book recently in a used book haul, I think a couple hauls ago, and I was like, oh, I just wanted to add it to my classic shelf. I don't know if I'll get to it. I can't remember if I ended up putting it on my October TBR, but I feel like I just picked it up randomly, and I ended up absolutely loving it. It was so short. I read it in one sitting. I was just really into the story. And for those of you who don't know, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is kind of a story about 2 sides of one person. So it's about a scientist who accidentally transforms himself into a hideous version of himself that's evil and a manifestation of bad things. And so it says, Stevenson's quintessential novella of the Victorian era epitomizes the conflict between psychology, science, and religious morality, but is fundamentally a triumphant study of the duality of human nature. So that's definitely my thoughts on it. I felt like it was really so compelling. The story was interesting. It was fast-paced. I thought the writing was good. But overall, it just kind of leaves you thinking a lot about the sides that we have within ourselves and what would happen if we fully gave in to either side, and just kind of the dire consequences that that could have. So if you're looking for something super quick that's a classic, you can kind of check off in terms of like, oh, I've read more classics, but it's also like compelling and fast-paced, I would really recommend this book. I know that this author also wrote Treasure Island, which is very different vibes than this, but I've heard wonderful things about that book too. So after reading this, I kind of was like, maybe I want to pick that up. So yeah, that is Robert Louis Stevenson's The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and I think I would give this like at minimum 4.5 stars, maybe even 5. I mean, I think I'm going to give it 5 stars because it was so fun, and it was like something perfect for me to pick up that was like spooky Halloween vibes, but still short, and I was able to complete it, so highly recommend. And then unfortunately the last book that we're gonna get to, and it's not even one that I finished, is the one that I was looking forward to the most for October. So I really want to finish it out in November, and I definitely think I will, but I just didn't get to finish it out completely in October, and that is Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House. I would say I am over halfway through. I don't know if you can see that. I'm over halfway through. I'm on page 90, and there's about 170 pages in my copy, so slightly over halfway, but I still have a decent chunk to go. But for those of you who didn't know, The Haunting of Hill House is basically about these 4 people who go and spend the summer at this very creepy old house that is said to be haunted, and they have all these very scary experiences there, and it's just about like each of them being 4 very different individuals like coming together and handling all this craziness. And it's also like about the house itself, in the way that the house is almost alive and like has its own control over what happens inside of it. It's definitely really creepy, but I love Shirley Jackson's writing. Like I said, I'm not finished with it, but I really think this is going to be one of my favorites of the year. So far, I've just been loving it, and I really liked the Netflix show for this book, but I would say that it's really different from the Netflix show. In the show, they're all siblings, and they kind of grow up in the house, and here they're all adults that like meet each other for the first time at the house, like before they spend the summer together. So I'm really, really enjoying it, and I would say that I'm probably going to rate this really highly, but I'm not going to rate it until I finish it. I would highly recommend other Shirley Jackson stuff that I have finished in the past though, like We Have Always Lived in the Castle. But yeah, huge fan of this, and I really love the quote on the back, so I'm going to read that real quick. It says, "Hill House, not sane, stood by itself against its hills, holding darkness within." So it's very Halloween vibes, very fall vibes, but I would highly, highly recommend. So yeah, that is my very brief but still enjoyable reading month for October. I'm hopeful that I'll finish up Hill House and get to some other ones on my November TBR in the month of November, but until then, I wish you guys the best reading month ever, and thank you so much for joining me in my reading nook. Have a great night. Bye.